for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson. I'm your co-host.
My name is Jack Prince, your fellow co-host.
Well, Jack, just when we thought that the Supreme Court would be done screwing this country over, oh no, they've got more rulings to hand down to basically rip up the Constitution, take us back to the 1700s. Yep. We're going to talk about that. We've got to talk about the surprise January 6th hearing that took place earlier this week. Some big bombshells coming out of this, and I'm hoping that after everybody hears this testimony, I hope Trump is done. I think this is the end for him. At least I can hope. So we'll talk about that and a lot more. Before we get started with today's show, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. And you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Spreaker, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or Reason.fm by doing a search for Southpaws. And once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. So be sure to listen on your local Pacifica station. Well, we might as well just dive right into it. The January 6th committee held a surprise hearing on Tuesday, and this was must-see TV. Holy crap, Jack. Did you watch that live?
Sure did.
Oh, my God.
And you couldn't have written a more dynamic court hearing. And I thought that Miss Cassidy, the 26-year-old, was renewing my confidence in the backbone of some Americans that's going to carry us through this. She was great.
Yeah, yes, she definitely was. Well, let's go ahead with this story. This is Lisa Mascaro writing for the Associated Press, along with help from several other AP writers, including Farnoosh Amiri, Michael Balsamo, Eric Tucker, and Noman Merchant. This is dated June 28th. The House January 6th committee held a surprise hearing Tuesday, delivering alarming new testimony about Donald Trump's angry, defiant, and vulgar actions as he ignored repeated warnings against summoning the mob to the Capitol and then refused to intervene to stop the deadly violence as rioters laid siege. Witness Cassidy Hutchinson, a lesser-known former White House aide, refused to join those in Trump's circle staying silent and provided first-hand knowledge of what she saw and heard in the run-up to the January 6, 2021 insurrection, a proximity to power that gives stunning new details in the panel's year-long investigation. With calm, detailed recollections, Hutchison testified that a defiant Trump was told that there were guns and other weapons in the rally crowd at the White House, but sent his supporters to the Capitol anyway, and even sought to physically pry the steering wheel from his presidential motorcade driver so he could join them. Trump was clinging to his false claims of voter fraud and refusing to concede the 2020 presidential election to Joe Biden as Congress was preparing to certify the results. Before joining the White House, Hutchinson had worked in some of the most conservative Republican offices on Capitol Hill. She was hired as special assistant to the president and promoted up as principal aide to Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows. So, yeah, when she was in Congress, she worked for Steve Scalise's office, and then she also worked for Ted Cruz's office. So
Two of the slipperiest, absolute repugnant Republicans. So she came through the ranks, and yet it was so egregious what she was seeing happening to her country and democracy through Trump's actions that she stood up, knowing the threats that would come to her, knowing the ruination of her career, at least with the Republicans. It was an incredible day after watching chicken crap out of these subpoenaed witnesses. For her to stand up at that age, it was a breath of fresh air and hope.
Yes,
seriously.
It was, definitely. Well, I tell you what, we've got a couple of clips for you folks. I want to play the first one. This one runs about 3.5 minutes. This is Hutchinson testifying, answering questions from Vice Chair of the committee, Liz Cheney, who, by the way, is probably ruining her political career over this because the Trump voters in her state are probably never going to vote for her again. So
exactly.
Let's take a listen.
She's got some principles. I mean,
yes, she does.
Looking at these two women, and it's just encouraging with all the misogyny that Trump displayed throughout his career and his life, with all of the divorces and shenanigans going on, that women may take this clown down.
Wouldn't that be poetic justice? It really would. So let's play the clip. Hutchinson describing Trump wanting a mob to come rolling in to watch his speech, even though they were armed. And here's what he had to say about it.
When we were in the offstage announce area tent behind the stage, he was very concerned about the shot, meaning the photograph that we would get, because the rally space wasn't full. One of the reasons, which I've previously stated, was because he wanted it to be full and for people to not feel excluded because they'd come far to watch him at the rally. And he felt the mags were at fault for not letting everybody in. But another leading reason, and likely the primary reason, is because he wanted it full and he was angry that we weren't letting people through the mags with weapons, what the Secret Service deems as weapons and our weapons. But when we were in the offstage announce tent, I was part of a conversation. I was in the vicinity of a conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in. Take the effing mags away.
Just to be clear, Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that the president wanted to take the mags away and said that the armed individuals were not there to hurt him?
That's a fair assessment.
The issue wasn't with the amount of space available in the official rally area only, but instead that people did not want to have to go through the mags. Let's listen to a portion of what you told us about that.
In this particular instance, it wasn't the capacity of our space, it was the mags and the people that didn't want to come through, and that's what Tony had been trying to relay to him that morning. It's not the issues that we encountered on the campaign. We have enough space, sir. They don't want to come in right now. They have weapons that they don't want confiscated by the Secret Service, and they're fine on the mall. They can see you on the mall, and they want to march straight to the Capitol from the mall.
The president apparently wanted all attendees inside the official rally space and repeatedly said, quote, "They're not here to hurt me."
And just to be clear, so he was told again in that conversation, or was he told again in that conversation that people couldn't come through the mags because they had weapons?
Correct.
And that people, and his response was to say,
effective, take the effing mags away. They're not here to hurt me. Let them in. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol after the rally's over. They can march from the ellipse. Take the effing mags away. Then they can march to the Capitol.
Ms. Hutchinson, what we saw when those clips were playing were photos provided by the National Archives showing the president in the offstage tent before his speech on the ellipse. You were in some of those photos as well. And I just want to confirm that is when you heard the president say the people with weapons weren't there to hurt him and that he wanted the Secret Service to remove the magnetometers.
That's correct. In the photos that you displayed, we were standing towards the front of the tent with the TVs. really close to where he would walk out to go onto the stage. These conversations happened 2 to 3 minutes before he took the stage that morning.
Wow. So he wanted all the magnetometers taken away and let the people in that had weapons, including AR-15s, by the way, folks.
Yeah, there's pictures of them sitting in the trees like Kentucky squirrel hunters with AR-15s surrounding. You know what we have here? We have a repetition of alliteration like never before, because Trump wanted the MAGAs taken down so the Magnus could get in.
Yeah.
Magnificently. It's incredible. The poetic cosmic infraction where we're looking at. All kidding aside,
Jack,
that could be his bear trap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Jack, let me tell you, Katie J would be very proud of you for the alliteration angle. She really would.
Now, his bubble may have broke on this one. You know, after a while, people just think there's nothing he can say or do that is really threatening to his continuance. And this may have done it. The fact that he knew they had weapons and he wanted him in there for his own ego, he wanted a bigger crowd, and said, hell with it. Don't let the weapons in. He knew they had weapons. That's clear connection to his intent.
They're not there. They're not there for me. They're not there to hurt me.
Who are they going to hurt? I mean, that statement is an open-ended rhetorical statement. There's a lot of English floating around here this morning, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. Pence, they wanted to hang Mike Pence. They wanted to murder Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all the Democrats. So, yeah.
Right, but a statement of saying they're not here to hurt me indicates a fulfillment of that theme is they're there to hurt somebody.
Yep.
You don't take weapons there to shoot the moles in the yard. What the hell? It only makes sense.
Oh, gosh. Well, there's a little more here, Jack. Let me go back to the AP story. Trump's lawyers at the White House were trying to tamp down Trump's speech to the crowd that he had summoned for January 6th. They were trying to stop his plans to go to the Capitol that day when Congress would be certifying the election results for Biden's victory. Hutchinson testified that lawyer Eric Hirschman said it, quote, would be foolish, end of quote, to include some of the language that Trump wanted to add to his speech. Comments like fighting for Trump or him telling the crowd, I'll be there with you. Hirschman warned such language shouldn't be included for legal concerns and because of the optics it would portray. That language ultimately was used by Trump as he rallied the crowd to fight like hell and promised that he would join them at the Capitol.
Exactly. Yeah. Can you imagine, Darren, what he had in his mind, what he had envisioned with him strolling up to the Capitol?
He was going to be the conquering hero. He was going to be like MacArthur storming Europe, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, he'd have stepped on the throne, declared it his in a grandiose fashion, bloodshed the whole 9 yards. That's what that guy had envisioned. America at this point knows enough of his sickness. They're getting an idea of the way he thinks. And that's what he had up his sleeve.
Yep. Days before January 6th, White House counsel Pat Cipollone suggested there were, quote, serious legal concerns, end of quote, if Trump went to the Capitol with the crowd, Hutchinson recalled. She recalled Cipollone saying in the run-up to the rally, quote, we need to make sure this doesn't happen, end of quote. And the morning of January 6th, Cipollone restated his concerns that if Trump did go to the Capitol to intervene in the certification of the election, quote, we're going to get charged with every crime imaginable, end of quote. By the way, he specifically mentioned obstruction of justice and obstructing the election as the two main crimes that they would get charged with.
I give the panel so much credit. You know, now they're putting pressure on personally on this counsel, the guy that said, as you just read or alluded to, if he comes up to Capitol, there'll be, you know, all these crimes that we'll be liable for. He's been subpoenaed, and I think what's going to bring him out of his nest is the taunt of, we've got a 26-year-old with enough backbone and gonads to stand there, and you don't have that. And I don't think they want that to continue. They may flush even some of these other people who are hiding behind the fifth.
Yep.
Because there's a bunch of them. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. So this then goes into our next clip that we're going to play. This runs 2.5 minutes. I never thought that we would ever have to report about a sitting U.S. president lunging for the wheel of the presidential limousine. This is beyond the pale, folks.
Yeah.
Take a listen to this. This runs about 2.5 minutes.
Ms. Hutchinson, when you returned to the White House in the motorcade after the president's speech, where did you go?
When I returned to the White House, I walked upstairs towards the Chief of Staff's office, and I noticed Mr. Ornato to go into his office, which was just across the hall from mine. When I went in, he shut the door, and I noticed Bobby Engel, who is the head of Mr. Trump's security detail, sitting in a chair, just looking somewhat discombobulated and a little lost. And I looked at Tony, and he had said, "Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast?" I said, "No, Tony, I just got back. What happened?" Tony proceeded to tell me that when the president got in the Beast, he was under the impression from Mr. Meadows that the off-the-record movement to the Capitol was still possible and likely to happen, but that Bobby had more information. So once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol, and when Bobby had relayed to him, "We don't have the assets to do it, it's not secure," strong, a very angry response to that. Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel. And when Mr. Ornato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
And was Mr. Engel in the room as Mr. Ornato told you this story?
He was.
Did Mr. Engel correct or disagree with any part of the story from Mr. Ornato?
Mr. Engel did not correct or disagree with any part of the story.
Did Mr. Engel or Mr. Ornato ever after that tell you that what Mr. Ornato had just said was untrue?
Neither Mr. Ornato nor Mr. Engel told me ever that it was untrue.
So the orange baby in power threw a temper tantrum, lunged for the steering wheel, and demanded to go to the Capitol. And then when the orange baby didn't get his way, went for the throat of his Secret Service agent.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what's impressive about Cassidy? Just her even-keeled, really not emotional testimony. There's no hesitation. There's no wheels turning behind her head. She's just remembering. She's recalling that conversation. She's not changing it. She's, as you can tell by listening to it, it's coming out factually. The SS now, of course, they're putting under denial. I was amazed at the timing, Darren. Yesterday morning, the Repugs were challenging the hearing committee, saying they wanted to know if there was collaboration from the SS. And lo and behold, not 2 hours later, there was a statement by the security police that they had no recollection of any of that account from Cassidy. My dollar says they already had it cleared by the SS. They knew that the SS was going to debunk her testimony before they sent that challenge out. They put the pressure on. And if you don't think they put pressure on, folks, look at some of the readings that Cheney read, where you're going to be a good boy, you're going to go up there, you're loyal, you're going to do what you're supposed to do. He'll be watching. He'll be watching. Are you kidding me? He'll be watching, and he reads transcripts. So don't think they didn't immediately feel out the SS, get the assurance that they would not back up her story. Then they turn out to America and text, well, let's corroborate this. Let's check this out with the SS. And this chicken crap SS comes back and says they have no remembrance of the story. Those that know Trump, and by now millions do, know damn well it happened. exactly the way that she said it. And then also his little tantrum of throwing plates up against the wall, pull his thumb out of his mouth long enough to pick up a plate or tablecloths, pulling whole tablecloths out. Good God, what a punk.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, the Secret Service has gone further and said, oh, no, we'll even provide agents who were in the motorcade that day, and they will testify under oath that none of this happened. Well,
no, that's exactly what they're doing to cover their ass, and the Republicans.
Yeah, and the reason they're doing this, the Secret Service does not want to be seen as weak, number one. Number two, they're a law enforcement organization. What have we said on this show? ACAB. All cops are bastards. All of them. That includes your uncle. That includes your cousin. That includes my cousin when she was a Grand Rapids police officer. All cops are lying bastards. Every single goddamn last one of them.
Categorically.
Yes.
And, I have a comment in the form of an analogy. There have been balloons with ropes that have secured them to the ground, and they've broken free. And some people grabbed onto them to try and hang on and keep it from floating up in the air, right? At some point, they realize this is going up higher, and I'm eventually going to fall. And the longer I hang on, the bigger the fall is going to be. And you can see them twisting and turning. Well, there are Republicans right now who were instrumental. One of them is Johnson, right here in our neighboring Midwestern state, Ron Johnson.
Over in Wisconsin.
Who are hanging on to that rope right now. And it's going faster and higher off the ground. More and more people see it. And the disclosures are meaning that it's gaining altitude. And Miss Cassidy put it way up in the air. And some of these fools, not some of them, most of these Republican fools are hanging on, insisting that this is just all fake news. And the SS, you can put them on the end of one of those ropes. But when they fall, the longer they hang on, the longer the fall is going to be. And after testimony the other day, I have inner confidence that says he's done. And it's all going to come apart. And the longer you want to hang on, Johnson, and Secret Service and Cruz and all you fools, the bigger collapse it's going to be, which in a way is good, Darren.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get the whole damn house of cards.
Yep. And I want to say something real quick before we continue with this AP story. For any broadcast group, radio, television, whatever, that's not airing these hearings live, I'm talking about you, Wood TV, people need to file complaints with the Federal Communications Commission because the local stations are not upholding the duties of their license, which is to inform the public.
Oh, you mean inform the public, Darren? Like put information out about the protest in Holland the other day? The anti-Roe decision protest with over 1,000, much larger than even the protest that had occurred here in Grand Rapids. Not one word of coverage. So I called up the news department. I said, do you think in this environment it might be of journalistic value to have covered that very poignant demonstration in the seat of a conservative county called Holland, and you had no coverage? You didn't mention it. It was on MLive 24 hours before because he tried to say, well, we didn't know about it. Nobody notified us about it. I said, well, how the hell did 1,000 people hear about it? Yeah. Somehow it was out there. Total and complete bias. They do not like to see Americans with placards up saying this is unconstitutional, this is conservative manipulation of a woman's body, et cetera, et cetera. They keep showing their real DNA, political DNA leaning over and over again, like what you just mentioned, and not covering these pertinent, these bombshell, historical hearings. Are you kidding me? What are we going to watch? We're going to watch Michigan West with the boar flashing leg shots with the other chicks there talking about the newest restaurant in town. Are you kidding me?
One of the most worthless shows ever in the history of local television. I'll just say it. I don't care.
In comparison to these hearings?
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, they didn't want to interrupt Days of Our Lives. That's.
Oh, okay. Well, that's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gee.
Like ketchup dripping down the wall. So are the days of our lives. We might as well get right into that part of it here. Let me continue the Associated Press story. The hearing opened with a calm, even-spoken Hutchinson explaining her job responsibilities, advising Meadows, often handling his cell phones, as the committee showed an architectural rendering of the layout of the West Wing. Hutchinson's office was situated between the Oval Office on one side and Meadows' office at the end of the hall on the other. Hers was also next to that of the Vice President's staff. She had an upfront view of conversations across the offices and beyond. Hutchinson described...
Trump never met her.
Yeah.
Trump had never seen her.
Oh, I have no idea who she is. Yeah. Yeah, you'll find out there, you orange bastard. Hutchinson described fielding a desperate phone call as she stood backstage at Trump's rally that day from House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy, who was upset that Trump had sent the crowd to the Capitol when she had promised they would not go. She also told of helping the White House staff mop up ketchup off the walls of the Oval Office dining room after Trump, learning that his Attorney General William Barr told the Associated Press there was no fraud on a scale to tip the presidential election, apparently hurled a plate of food at the wall. In one gripping scene, Hutchinson recalled walking with Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani out of the White House when he asked if she was excited about the 6th. She recalled Giuliani saying, quote, "We're going to the Capitol. It's going to be great. The president's going to be there. He's going to look powerful," end of quote. When she returned inside and told Meadows of that conversation, he told her a lot was going on. She recalled that Meadows told her, quote, "Things might get real, real bad," end of quote. As the mob laid siege to the Capitol, lawyers and some others at the White House wanted Trump to do something to quell the mounting violence. A makeshift gallows had been erected on the National Mall as rioters roamed the halls searching for congressional leaders and taunting, "Hang Mike Pence." The House and Senate had abruptly halted the proceedings. Lawmakers whisked to undisclosed locations for safety. Hutchinson recalled the conversations inside the Oval Office as she brought Meadows a phone call, and later as the White House lawyers implored the chief of staff to get Trump to act. She recalled that Meadows told Cipollone, quote, "You heard it. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong," end of quote. This is a sitting president talking about his vice president.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
You let him get shot. Let him get hung.
Yeah.
He deserves it.
Yeah. Trump then tweeted in the midst of the siege that Pence didn't have the courage to do what he wanted, reject the electors from the battleground states, stopping Biden's election. Hutchinson described the wave of sadness that hit her. She testified, quote, "As a staffer that works always to represent the administration to the best of my ability to showcase the good things he had done for the country, I remember feeling frustrated, disappointed. I was really sad. As an American, I was disgusted. It was unpatriotic. It was un-American. We were watching the Capitol building get defaced over a lie," end of quote. Hutchinson described the thinking at the White House that day as falling into three groups: those who wanted Trump to take action, others towing the line knowing Trump didn't want to call off the rioters, and a deflect and blame group who tried to pin the violence on non-Trump supporters. Meadows, she said, was in the deflect and blame category, but eventually took a more neutral stance. So, yeah, they were trying to say it was Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, they use that in a drop of a hat.
They want to keep downing BLM and Antifa. Well, I got news for you, folks. Wait till you hear about Jane's Revenge. You're going to think Antifa was a bunch of kindergartners playing tiddlywinks. Just wait, folks. Just wait. I got to stop this story because this is just too much here. This is way too much.
I will say this, though, peripherally. If and when Trump goes to jail, they should let Liz Cheney lead him by the hand down there and kick his orange suit through the door.
By his little tiny dinky hands.
That woman is tough. Seriously. And Trump has met his match. That's all there's to it.
Oh, my God. Well, I tell you what, Jack, you had mentioned that you went to Holland earlier in the week for a abortion rights rally. So Let's go ahead and let's talk about some of the things that have happened since Friday when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. By the way, as far as I'm concerned, an illegal Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
I'll just say that right now on this show. This is Andy Campbell and Alana Vagianos writing for the Huffington Post. This is dated June 24th. A truck driver careened into a group of demonstrators in Cedar Rapids, Iowa on Friday as they crossed the street during an otherwise peaceful protest of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. The unidentified male driver of a Ford truck rammed into several protesters, all of them women, at the tail end of a procession, rolling over one woman's ankle and sending her to the hospital. Liz Lenz, a local journalist and witness to the attack, said, quote, "He tried to murder them. These women see him coming and a bunch of people put their hands out to stop him, and he just keeps going." End of quote. Multiple witnesses, including one of the victims, described the scene in interviews with HuffPost. The male driver was waiting behind several cars at a red light downtown as a throng of protesters crossed the street. He became impatient, as several witnesses said, and hit the gas, maneuvering around several cars to ram protesters. By the way, there's video of this, folks.
Yeah. Well, it's not the first car that's been used as a weapon by Republicans. And now they've got a lot of local judges that have and legislation that allows it.
Yep. I tell you what, time to use your Second Amendment rights to protect your First Amendment rights. Period. End of story. You better do it. And I tell you what, I've told you off air, I think I mentioned it on air. I think it's time to go back to the range and see if I can get that 45 ACP I was looking at a few months ago.
Well, I've seen a lot of people say it's time for the pink-clad protesters, the females, to drop the pink and pick up a brick. I'm not espousing for violence, but if you're going to be open game for Republicans to be run the hell over, you got to go prepared to protect yourself.
Yeah, I'm not espousing violence. I'm espousing self-defense. There's a difference.
Self-defense, yeah, exactly. That protest you mentioned in Holland. Mm-hmm. Here's the upside. Here's the good side, folks. For those who are listening, I wish I could transmit to you the spirit of the young people there, the hundreds of young girls on the sides of the streets that stretched for a number of blocks right through the conservative heart of the Prince Citadel called Holland, the Christian deformed capital called Holland, Michigan. There they were, standing against the conservative decision of the Supreme Court. 17, 18-year-old girls, and not exaggerating. There were also boomers there backing them up, and there were over 1,000 of them, and they were animated. It was a beautiful thing to watch, Darren, and it gives me hope, because that's the synergy that might give us a shot at the election coming up in November. If you can harness that, if you can utilize that energy and synergy I saw in Holland, Michigan by these protesters, there's a chance you can stop the onslaught. Because if you don't, you can kiss goodbye equal rights in marriage. You can kiss away contraception. You can kiss away all of the rights that have been fought for since my days as a youngster. When I was 17, 18 in a park protesting the Vietnam War, they'll be gone. They've got them listed, and they're going after them one after another.
They certainly are. I'm going to go through this list, Jack. This is a story Emma Goldberg writing for the New York Times. This is dated June 29th. It's a list of companies that have said that they will cover travel expenses for their employees who need to travel to get an abortion. Now, I'm going to start out right here, right at the very top. I've seen a lot of criticism on social media. Well, these companies are only paying for this because they don't want to pay for pregnancy leave. Bullshit. Absolute, total bullshit lie.
Yes, it is.
And I'm tired of it, and I'm going to start calling people out. There's even some people that identify as progressives that are into this line of crap. You don't want me to call you out by name because I'll do it. I don't care. I don't care if we're friends. I'll do it.
Let's follow that stream of thinking. Ask those same idiots, what were the CEOs of almost 250 large Fortune 500 companies doing when they signed a letter urging Congress for full and complete comprehensive gun control legislation less than 2 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
What was the corporate world's angle there? Were some of them possibly sitting back in the boardroom thinking the nation is a nut house, madhouse, old Western movie, and we're worried about our grandkids? Could that possibly have been a motive? Yeah, not only that motive existed, but also the motive now that the corporations are saying they'll help women get through the lines of the crazies who want to persecute women. What is it? How many states? It's a felony. It's an offense, a fine and jail offense if you even attempt an abortion.
Yeah.
And you can make a $10,000 check if you squeal on a neighbor who you think is fomenting ideas for an abortion.
In Texas.
Incredible.
Yeah, it is. I tell you what, let me go through the list here because there's a whole bunch of them. After the Supreme Court ruling on Friday that ended federal abortion rights, several companies released statements reaffirming their commitment to helping employees gain access to health care services that they may not be able to obtain in their state. A small group of companies began in May to come out, including Starbucks, Tesla, Yelp, Airbnb, Microsoft, Netflix, Patagonia, DoorDash, JP Morgan Chase, Levi Strauss, PayPal, Amazon, and Reddit. Others, including the Walt Disney Company, Meta, who's the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, Dick's Sporting Goods, and Condé Nast joined them Friday when the decision became final. Johnson & Johnson said in a statement Friday that it strove to, quote, put health within reach for the people we serve. We also believe healthcare decisions are best determined by individuals in consultation with their healthcare provider, end of quote. And here's a longer list of them here. Warner Brothers said that it would cover travel expenses for abortions. Quote, in light of the Supreme Court's recent decision, we immediately expanded our health care benefits options to cover transportation expenses for employees and their covered family members who need to travel to access abortion and reproductive care, end of quote. Disney said it would cover travel expenses as well. Quote, we recognize the impact that today's Supreme Court ruling could have on many Americans, end of quote. And that's according to Paul Richardson, the company's head of human resources, and Disney Vice President Pascal Thomas. A representative for Meta, again, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, said, quote, we intend to offer travel expense reimbursements to the extent permitted by law for employees who will need them to access out-of-state health care and reproductive services. We are in the process of assessing how best to do so given the legal complexities involved, end of quote. Bank of America released this statement, quote, we have expanded the list of medical treatments that are eligible for travel expense reimbursement. This list will now include cancer treatment, organ transplants at centers of excellence, reproductive health care, including abortions, and hospital admissions for mental health conditions, end of quote. Intuit said Friday that they would cover employee travel expenses to get abortions. Condé Nast said it would cover travel and lodging for employees to get abortions. Roger Lynch, Condé Nast's chief executive, said, quote, it is a crushing blow to reproductive rights that have been protected for nearly half a century, end of quote. Zillow said that they would reimburse their employees up to $7,500 when significant travel is required for medical procedures, including abortions. Box, which has already said that they would cover employee travel expenses for abortions, said that they were, quote, disappointed by the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, end of quote. Salesforce said it would relocate employees concerned about their ability to get abortions in Texas. Representatives said, quote, we will continue to offer our longstanding travel and relocation benefits to ensure employees and their families have access to critical health care services, end of quote. Patagonia reaffirmed its commitment to covering employee travel expenses for abortions. Dick's Sporting Goods said that they would provide up to $4,000 in travel reimbursement for employees who live in states that restrict abortion access, and that the policy would apply to any spouse or dependent covered by the company's medical plan. Lyft, the rideshare service, which previously said that they would cover travel expenses for abortions, said that the Supreme Court's decision, quote, will hurt millions of women by taking away access to safe and private reproductive health care services, end of quote. They are also expanding their legal defense commitment to protect drivers who may be sued for taking people to clinics, adding, quote, no driver should have to ask a rider where they are going and why, end of quote. Lyft's competitor Uber emphasized the company's insurance coverage for a range of reproductive health benefits that include pregnancy termination and its commitment to covering travel expenses for employees accessing health care services. BuzzFeed's chief executive, Jonah Peretti, told staff on Friday that the company would provide stipends for employees who needed to travel for abortions. Yelp co-founder and chief executive Jeremy Stoppelman called the decision a threat to gender equality in the workplace. And they have earlier pledged to cover travel expenses for abortion. H&M said that it would cover travel and transportation expenses for employees living in states where abortion is prohibited or restricted. Vox Media said the company would cover travel expenses for employee abortions and would also expand its pregnancy loss leave to cover people who get abortions. Adobe, which had previously said its healthcare policy covered travel expenses for abortion, said, quote, "We have and will always prioritize inclusive benefits to create a world-class culture for our employees," end of quote. Google, which covers travel expenses for employee abortions, told its employees that they could also apply to relocate, quote, "without justification," end of quote. So, yeah, Google, if you work for Google in Texas, they'll move you to Michigan just so you can get your health care.
We hope it's Michigan.
Yeah, we hope so.
It's hanging by a thread right now.
Well, the Supreme Court's got the injunction. We'll get to a little bit of that in just a minute here.
You know, there's a body of facts out there that the right refuses to enter even into their perusal. And one of them is the list you just read.
Yeah.
Another one is a list of each state alphabetically and the number of foster children within each state. Yep. You'll notice, for example, Asa Hutchinson last night from Arkansas, the governor, when asked about how it is you can have a bill, a trigger bill that just went into effect that completely ignores incest, rape, and has blanket abortion. And his only answer is the same answer all these conservatives flip out, and that is, well, we are strengthening now our adoption agencies. We're going to pour money into adoption agencies. You take that list, the list you just read, and you add to that list right now as a body of empirical fact. The numbers, 40-some thousand foster children in California. Texas, the handmaid state, that's up to 35,000. Right here in Michigan, I think we're around 12,000. State by state by state, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of broken lives that will remain broken.
Yeah. And
those kinds of bedrock facts that you're reading right now, that list of awareness by corporations, by psychotic, by sociopathic corporations, right?
Yeah.
Not caring. It's corporations. It's that egregious, Republicans, that these billionaires are willing to take you on now. I am encouraged this morning, Darren. I feel, you know, in football sometimes you have turnovers that turn a game right around, right? Mm-hmm. I think the MAGA hat idiots have fumbled on their own 3-yard line, and we've got the ball. We need to go to these protests. We need to push like mad at the ballot box to vote out these anti-abortion Republicans. We need to fight, because if we lose here in November, this has been no more than a dramatic show. It's been very entertaining. But there are certain victories that you have got to check in your file, on your ledger, or it all goes to naught. And this is where the energy right now, these hearings coupled with the passion out there by the women in this country, and many men as well, with the anti-abortion issue, could carry us over the top. It's not going to be the flamboyant, charismatic personality of Joe Biden. Let's be honest about it. Let's face reality.
Yep.
It's these issues that have people really ready to fight. And fight they must.
Yes, indeed. Well, Jack, I got a few more companies that have said that they're going to cover abortion expenses. I'm just going to read them off real quick. We had mentioned Starbucks earlier. Impossible Foods, Jack, one of your favorite companies, said that they would cover travel, lodging, meals, and child care for employees who need to travel to get abortions out of state. Other companies include Accenture, Expedia, Urban, Estee Lauder, Chobani Yogurt, Yahoo, The Body Shop, Discord, Rivian, Bumble, Bloomberg LP, and Match Group said that they would cover travel for employees who needed healthcare procedures not provided locally. Douglas Elliman said it would expand its healthcare coverage to reimburse employees who have to travel to get abortions. Nike said it covered travel and lodging for employees who needed to travel to get healthcare procedures, including abortions. Nordstrom said it created a new travel benefit for employees who cannot get abortions locally. OpenSea said that they would cover travel for employee abortions. PricewaterhouseCoopers said its employees could apply for financial assistance for expenses associated with medical procedures. Wells Fargo told its employees Monday that the firm would expand its existing travel benefits for medical coverage to include reimbursement for abortion travel, quote, in accordance with applicable law, end of quote. Procter & Gamble told their employees Tuesday that starting in January that their health care plans will cover travel support for medical care not available close to home, including abortions. Amazon, we mentioned as well. Danone North America updated their health care benefits to cover abortion-related travel as well. The accounting firm of Deloitte U.S. said that they would help cover travel for employees who needed health care procedures not provided locally. Ford Motor Company said its employees with health savings accounts could use those to reimburse themselves for transportation necessary for medical care, quote, within limitations of tax law, end of quote. I'm not a fan of that one. Oh, you can use your HSA or whatever, but we're not going to provide it out of our own pocket. Use your HSA. That's wrong.
Right.
Don't ban equality. A coalition of businesses said more than 350 companies had signed its letter opposing restrictions on abortion access. So good for them. We need more companies to speak up to this. It's disgusting, Jack. It's beyond disgusting.
Are you talking the school prayer next? Is that what you mean is beyond disgusting?
Well, I tell you what, let's save that for right after we're going to do our quick segment here. So let's go ahead and let's play the appropriate music because I've been wanting to do this all week.
Stop. Hammer time.
Oh, yeah, it's hammer time. It is time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week, and we got 5 winners, and I'm going to go through them real quickly. Winner number 1, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Republican. He blamed Biden's immigration policies for the deaths of over 50 people being smuggled into the country. Did you see this story, Jack?
Yeah, I did.
Like 65 people were in a tractor trailer, one of them semi-trailers.
Yeah.
No ventilation, no water, no food, no nothing. Being smuggled into the border. Abbott says, oh, well, it's because of Biden. No. Human trafficking has been going on for decades. Greg, why don't you roll off somewhere? I hate Greg Abbott. I absolutely hate his guts. So, winner number 1, Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Winner number 2 this week, Twitter. I'm pissed at Twitter because they banned the Southpaws account for 12 hours after I made a post, and it was a response to Keith Olbermann. Olbermann was talking about one of the Trump officials. The FBI seized the guy's phone and they got it on video. And Olbermann made the comment that it was too bad that the FBI didn't kick this guy's ass. So I made a reply. I said, it's too bad that the FBI doesn't go or somebody doesn't go and kick Tucker Carlson's ass. So Twitter didn't like that. So they banned me for 12 hours. So Twitter, f*** you. I'm going to say it again, folks. Public utility. Social media needs to be accountable like a public utility. Regulate them. Winner number 3 this week, Kent County, Michigan prosecutor Chris Becker for not following the statewide injunction against the enforcement of Michigan's 1931 ban on abortion. And I'm going to call for my local listeners out there. You need to go to Becker's house and protest. Don't do it at his office. Go to his home in Ada. You need to get up close and personal with him. These people need to be held accountable one way or another, Jack. Winner number 4 this week, Wood Television. They actually reported a story earlier this week, and they reported a story before we started recording this morning. The group Americans for Prosperity, or as we call them on this show, assholes f***ing the poor, because that's what they do. They are hitting different areas across the country, but they're targeting Michigan. They were in Flint a few days ago. They pick a gas station, and they lower the price of unleaded gasoline to the price that it was on January 20th, 2021. They're doing it in Grand Rapids on Thursday, June 30th, as we're recording this show. So why am I mad at Wood TV for reporting the story? It wasn't that they reported it. It was the fact that Wood TV had the temerity to call AFP a nonpartisan organization. Jack, we know better, right?
Yeah.
AFP was in favor of right to work for less money in Michigan years ago. They've been around for a while. They've been quiet for a few years. Now they've, like a ugly cancer, they've popped back up. Time to get the scalpel and excise them. Really, it is. So Wood TV says, oh, they're a nonpartisan group. No, they're not. Because I remember going to one of those AFP rallies that they had over at, I believe it was a Blythefield Country Club. And Buck Gino, who is a former business agent, I believe, for the Plumbers and Steamfitters Union, and a former colleague of ours when we did our show on a certain Kentwood radio station, I almost had to physically hold Buck back from beating somebody's ass that night. He was so upset at AFP lying to everybody there. He was upset. He red in the face, and I could see the steam. It was something else. Loved it. So Wood TV, winner number 4. Winner number 5, the aforementioned Americans for Prosperity, or assholes f***ing the poor, for lying to the public about why gas prices are going up. It doesn't have to do with inflation. It doesn't have to do with Russia. It doesn't have to do with not drilling. It's corporate greed. Take a look at the statistics. Take a look at the oil company's own public filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission, because they have to report on this. They're making record profits on oil that's cheaper now than it was a year ago.
Yeah, you have to stop thinking that corporations are just non-human entities. You know, just because they hide behind one-way glass windows in their skyscrapers, they're not. They're made up of human beings, and those human beings right now have a motive to make the gas price high. One of them is they're pissed off because they see the future with renewable energy, with electricity being produced by, instead of oil, by the wind or by the sun. They see the future, and they're raking in as much as they can right now because they know their tent's going to come down at some point. Secondly, they know that if Biden gets enough crap thrown at him from the Americans for Progress groups and other idiotic disguised conservative groups, it's going to take a toll on the Democratic elections, or on the party's impact here in the midterm, and then in 24 with Biden.
Yeah.
So they win big. They win real big. And the third motive is just pure bucks. The percentage of profit they've made, that's another one of the facts you need to add to the list of foster home people and the companies paying for abortion. Put in there the percentage of increase of profit in just 1 year from Shell and Mobil, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the things that mean something, not some BS blame with a sticker on a pump with Biden's face on it. Take some real, what we call cognizant empirical facts or information, and make decisions based on that. That's what we are stressing in this show today. If you go back, and I've got more. I've got more of them. Here's one. There's 500,000 Americans have signed a petition to get rid of Clarence Thomas. And you better hurry. You better hurry before school prayer is shoved down our throat. He's got these things listed, what him and his wife Ginny want to pull off on Americans. These numbers, they all count. The amount of petitions that need to be signed for the anti-Roe decision and the right for a woman to have control of her body here in Michigan. You go down to the restaurant right down on Lake Street.
Brewery Vivant.
Brewery Vivant, thank you. They are giving free meals if you sign the petition. A free meal.
Yep.
There's boomer representatives and volunteers taking signatures all over the city. You need to get out and sign them. Then you need to get your old grandmother up and have her sign, and your kids and everybody.
Yep. It's
these numbers that are going to win for us. Go ahead.
Yeah, I made my 84-year-old mother go up to Fremont to the Newaygo County Democratic Party office and sign the petition for reproductive rights guaranteed by the Michigan State Constitution.
Yeah. We're in a battle. They're in a battle in Ukraine, and every 18-year-old to 60-year-old, every man is fighting, and there's a lot of women fighting as well because it's a life and death struggle. We're in a life and death struggle right here. Maybe not quite as bloody, not yet, but that struggle is the lifeblood of democracy on the line, and women's rights on the line right now.
Yep.
So the warm-ups are over. We're in the middle of the game right now.
Exactly. So to our 5 winners this week, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
Yeah, that's right. You all need to stop being lying douchebags. You really do. And Jack, I know you want to talk real quickly about the other Supreme Court quote-unquote ruling that happened earlier this week. Yeah, you can kiss the separation of church and state goodbye after this week.
Yeah, it's hard. This Kennedy, the coach, this high school coach, if he'd have brought out a little Muslim prayer blanket and sat down on a 50-yard line, he'd have been drawn and quartered. There'd be no issue.
Exactly.
But the superiority, the white supremacist brand of myth called Christianity is preeminent. And that's going to be shoved down. Some kid's going to be sitting in the classroom if they have their way. And it's going to be indoctrinated in thinking there's a superior being that's going to help them get through the day. So you better pray to him.
Yeah. This was a coach, I forget what state it was, prayed with his team out at the 50-yard line after the game, and the school fired him. So he sued the school district saying that they infringed on his First Amendment rights on freedom of religion, while the school's saying, no, we're doing this in support of the school's First Amendment right, separation of church and state, which is basically freedom from religion. The Establishment Clause. Congress shall make no law establishing religion. The free exercise comes later. The establishment was first for a reason. And some of these people that want to say that they know their Constitution, no, you need to go look deep into the history of why the Constitution was written the way it was. Especially you conservatives out there, you evil, violent conservative traitors, because that's what you all are.
Folks, as a former teacher and a professor right here at Grand Valley State University, school prayer is an indoctrination. It's a form of an indoctrination. It is an irrational function contrary to a learning process. It has no place in a school. If you're going to have religion in a school, have what they now have banned, conservatives have, which is called comparative religion. Because then you can look at 10 different religions or 100 different religions, there's 4,000 in the world, and find out which one had the least effective torture policy. Was it the Muslims? Was their torture as good as the Christian torture? Were the atrocities? Were the crimes of the Catholic Church, the sex crimes that pay off millions? Let's study. I'll teach it. I'll be glad to teach it. You want to bring that in the classroom? Instead of praying to some sky god that's going to answer a kid's problems instead of hard work and learning? Is that what you want? No, you may be upset with the issue of abortion. My upset, because I guess my back roots as an educator, is what they're trying to do now to the young people, which is to bring in the mythical power of prayer into a secular classroom.
They want to brainwash the kids.
Yeah.
Jack, we have run completely out of time for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Jack Prince.
Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.